All right, so last time we were looking at our raised bed and we actually put in some zip ties temporarily, but we want to put in some hooks instead. So we bought these hooks with an eyelet that we're gonna install. And we also got this PVC and a clamp to go into the raised bed. Now Michael is gonna cut the zip tie, and then we're gonna insert.
I'm gonna go cut the other ones.
All right, go ahead and cut the other ones. We're gonna insert the PVC, the clamps, and the hooks.
So our garden bed is done and it's protected. Now we're gonna get ready to start planting our seeds. But before we do that, we're gonna set up our square foot garden. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna measure about 11.5 inches each on this side, and we're gonna do a foot on this side, and 11.5 because we had a few inches offset when we placed our wood. So we're gonna use some, these are called wire nails, and we're gonna use jute twine to make our square foot garden. So here we have the finished raised bed with the square foot sections all set up. Now we are going to get planting. All right, so here we have sectioned out our raised bed into our square foot garden, and we're ready for planting. Now before we added the wires, we added our fertilizer because it was easier to do so. So we added azomite, we added kelp meal, alfalfa meal, we added rock phosphate, C90, and Epsom salt. Now we know the Epsom salt and the C90 and the azomite will provide the minerals for our plants, and then the alfalfa meal, the kelp meal, and the rock phosphate will provide the NPK needed for the plants to flourish. Now we are continuing our succession gardening, so we already have some beets coming up and some carrots coming up, and we're gonna do the second week here in this bed, and we're gonna add celery, we're gonna add 2 different type of beets, ruby red and Detroit dark. We're gonna also add some spinach, more Savoy cabbage, sweet onion, leeks, purple carrots, and radish. The reason why we chose all these seeds is because they do very well together. They manage water very well, especially sweet onion. Now, we would not include any tangy onion in this bed because it will require less water than a sweet onion, because the more water you give to onion, the sweeter it will be. So we decided to plant all these seeds together in this raised bed gardening. Since cabbage needs a lot of space, we're only going to plant 2 seeds in these 2 squares. So 1 cabbage will grow per square. If both of them, by God's grace, germinate, then we're going to prune 1. So we're going to plant 2 in that hole and 2 in this hole. Leeks need a lot of spacing, about 1.5 inch spacing and a 1/4 inch deep. So we're gonna plant about 6 leeks in these rows. You want to make sure you use the right amount of seeds because you don't want to throw away seeds by pruning if all of them germinate, which by God's grace we expect they will. Now carrots are our favorites. You know, we do a lot of juicing. So when you juice, you need a lot of carrots. And thankfully they don't require much spacing to grow. So within this square, we can have 16 carrots. All right, so we're gonna take advantage of the space that we have available, and we're gonna plant out our carrots. Similar to carrots, we can have 16 radishes in our bed, and they require about a 1/2 inch depth space. Not too much on spacing. You can plant them however you want. And these are going to be the fastest growers in our garden. So when these are harvested, we're going to plant another cabbage in this spot. All right, and we plant a little more than we expect, just in case some of them do not germinate. Just like we did for the carrots. Next, another favorite are onions. We plant a lot of onions, especially at this time of year. When we get our onion harvest, it's generally very successful and we are able to save onions for a long time frame. Now, sweet onions do not store as long as tangy onions, so the stronger the onions, the longer it will last. All right, so we're gonna plant these about 1 inch deep, and they require about an inch spacing. These are 2-inch spacing until they germinate. Then we'll prune them about 3 inch. These are sweet Spanish Utah onions, so they're not that big. And this is perfect soil for onions because you don't want the soil to be too compact or too stony, and then you don't want to plant them too deep so that the bulbs have space to expand and there is room for it to grow. Okay, so now we're going to plant our organic spinach, and this is a Bloomdale spinach. Now these are another fast growers, and these are another of our family favorite. Now spinach require 3-inch spacing for the rows, and you plant them about 1 inch deep. All right, and then when they germinate, you're gonna thin them about 6 inches. So we're gonna get our rows ready for our spinach. Spinach also like well-drained soil, so with the added peat moss in this bed, it will make it wonderful for this plant. Now we'll plant out our purple carrots. And again, it's the same thing as the previous carrots that we sowed. You can get 16 in a 12-inch bed. All right, and here we are in these last 2 rows. We're gonna plant our beets. Now there's an interesting thing about beets. I don't know if you can zoom into these pods here, Jose, but each seed pod will contain about 4 seeds, and they require a lot of water. See, if I break apart this pod, then I'll be able to expose the seeds in it. Or will I? So you have 4 seeds in these pods, and they require a lot of moisture in order for them to germinate. So when we're done sowing our seeds, we have to water very deeply so that they will be able to germinate. And again, your beets, you want to plant them about 1/2 inch deep, not too deep. And you don't really have to prune beets because they will grow on top of each other. There's one variety there, and then these are the dark red variety. So we planted the Ruby Queen, and now we're going to plant the dark red variety. So finally, our raised bed square foot garden is complete. Today we planted celery, cabbage, leeks, 2 different types of carrots, onion, radish, spinach, and 2 types of beets. Now, for many of us, we do not have, you plant things, you may not be able to remember where you plant each item. So it's good to label. And here we have popsicle. Popsicle are crafter's best friend. So if you have popsicles, you just use those. You may have to rewrite as the ink may get washed off, but we will know where we planted our crops. So if something doesn't germinate, we will know exactly which one did not. So finally, we're gonna go ahead and water. Now, because you have put all the hard work into sowing your seeds, you do not want to wash them away with heavy pressure watering. So you're gonna use a light mist. Ensure that you water deeply and just gently water the seed. And this will encourage germination. So we've been watering for a little bit. We want to make sure that our seeds are evenly watered, especially our beets. And another wonderful thing about the popsicle stick is that it can tell you if you've watered enough, because when you pull up your sticks, it should be wet. The base of it should be wet and not dry. So when you do that, if it's dry, then you know that you need to add more water. Let me just check another one. So all of our popsicle sticks are completely wet below. This one needs to be watered a little more. But you can look at that and you can see the dry spot versus the wet everywhere else around it. And that's an indication that you need to add a little more water to your bed so that your seeds will germinate.
Dad, what's the spiritual application?
Oh, you know, son, with everything we do, we want to ask the Lord to help us so that we can learn from everything that we do. And what did we do this time? What is this? This is a raised bed, right? And we section it off into square feet. So we're using the most that we have with what we're given. And God gives us something. You know what that is? What does He give us?
I don't know.
Talents. He gives us abilities like being able to talk, speech. Did you know that your speech is a talent?
Yes.
Yeah, so we want to thank God for giving us that talent. But what are we doing with that? With the words that we're speaking? What are we doing?
We're giving them.
We're using them to help others, to help each other, right? To say kind words. Do you like to say kind words to mommy? Yeah, I love to say kind words to mommy because then she's very happy. I like to see mommy happy. How about you?
Me too.
Yes. So let's use the talents that God gives us to help each other. What do you say?
Thank you, Lord, for helping us.
Amen. So thank you so much for joining us in another edition of Seed Time and Harvest, where we showed you how to make the raised bed, how to fill the raised bed, how to make the fence, how to square off your garden to make a square foot garden, and also how to plant your seed. Now we're waiting for the harvest. As we wait for the harvest, we also want to give you a tip that you can go ahead and cover this up if it gets too cold, if it dips down too low. We can always cover this with a blanket and keep our produce from frosting. So from us here at the Seed Time and Harvest Garden, happy planting.
Happy planting, everyone.